Right, we're back.
Alrighty, it's been 2 weeks or more. 3 weeks.
Feels like it's been
Yeah, it
much
feels like
longer.
it's been a while. How's Neil doing?
It was
I wanna know
not.
how
It
Neil
was
is
not
doing.
my fault.
Neil, how are you?
How are
It
you?
was
Because
not
we
my
know what's
fault.
going on.
Yeah.
We've been hanging out a little bit. It was Ben's birthday. That was the issue.
It's true. My apologies.
What else was it? Ben's birthday?
And then
And then you guys
trip to
were.
Cape Town.
A trip to Cape Town?
It took us
Caught in
3.5
town.
hours. Yeah, that's not true. That's not true. It took me 3.5 hours to get to Cape Town. Garth was maybe 2.5 hours.
An hour and a half
I don't know.
together.
Well, anyway, I picked Garth up along the way and we suffered together. There were
But
moments
if you're
where
spending that amount of time with Glass Hill, how would you not be suffering?
I think Garth has TBS, which is a medical term for tiny bladder syndrome. And he sits in the car. We're probably 10 minutes and he's like, I have to pee. But no, bumper to bumper, it's pouring rain. There's nowhere to go. He's like, do you think if I run out and pee and then just catch up with you at a later stage, it'll work? And I was like, no.
No,
Probably would have though. What?
Probably would have.
But I
Yeah.
had number 2 on as well. So it was number 1 and number 2. And then the number 1 was making number 2 worse. And then I wanted to fart, but the car was hot and like comfortable. And
Bro, if you had farted in my car, I would have kicked you
So
out.
we got
I would
to
have
the
left
lift.
you there, bro.
when did you thank me? We got to the
We got to
lift
the
and you were
lift.
like, dude, I just want to say thanks for not letting that go in the car.
See, I'm polite.
Yeah.
What are friends for?
Good friendship that we have. Like,
I don't know. I feel like better friends would have just taken it for you. Like
No,
I understand
no,
you're suffering.
fuck
It's
that.
like,
No.
no, I knew that.
let's open the windows.
I wasn't
I'll
happy,
stick my
bro.
head
I'd already
out.
sat there for 3 hours in this traffic. I couldn't cope with more. My threshold had been reached.
No, we were uncomfortable. But we had a good, so business was good. But how are you? Missing paddle because it's been wet?
I'm really missing
You've
paddle.
been playing indoor a lot.
I had 5 days of 3 hours of coaching.
Oh, yeah, you told me.
Yeah.
So,
Are you coaching or are you getting
No, I
coached?
was getting coached.
Sure, getting coached.
Becoming a
Alright.
pro. That's
Yeah, from a
Pro coaching.
ex-pro from Portugal. So he was down here doing like a course. So yeah, Pace Academy.
Still can't beat me,
So-
bro.
My paddle's just a little more shitter now.
But we must set up a game. We must have a little.
I'm keen, bro.
Game.
I'm going to destroy you.
Who's the fourth going to be?
I'll pick
I
anyone.
don't need a partner. It's fine.
Me and Ben versus
Which-
you.
Yeah, we'll give Neil 2 rackets.
Give me half a racket.
I saw this Instagram clip of this guy beating the hell out of his partner, but he was using a frying pan. And he was still winning.
Still winning. Nice. All right. So let's. So we're catching up on the other 2 topics. What was the first one, Benzo? How we are
I don't
being
remember at
failed
all.
by a few things, or a few things are failing us. And the last one we spoke about was the medical. So how you were failing us, but then we
Yes.
hashed that out and we discussed that it comes from both sides to a degree.
I feel like we
Um,
reached a nice point. there.
Yeah, we got to a nice kind of medium there where we were like, oh, okay, it is actually the client's fault as much as it is
Yeah,
potentially
two-way
the doctor's
street.
fault.
Agreed.
Two-way street that that myself and Neil need to look at doing. So now we're going to move on to the pharmaceutical side. Is that correct, eh?
Correct, yeah.
So Neil,
This
hit
is
us.
very interesting to me. I don't want to lead this one at all because I
Yeah.
have a lot of curiosity as to what you guys think about the pharmaceutical industry.
So I'm going to lean it further on to Neil.
Yeah, let's lean to the left on this one.
Let's go all the way left
Let's be like Biden and go all the way left.
because I'm
Can't
kind of
go
like.
that far left. You'd be out of the camera view.
So this is actually good because Neil is probably further left than what I am. I'm like in the middle still with a few things. I'll still take a Panado if I've got a hangover. Neil doesn't get hangover, so he won't need the Panado. But maybe start us up with, should we start light pharmaceuticals? And then
Should we
lean
start
into-
non-prescription pharmaceuticals?
Yeah.
Put that
It's
way.
like
Yeah.
what you just use. Like yesterday, a client said to me, "Oh, I woke up with a little bit of headache." So I was like, "Is it like a thick headache or like a pane?" No, pane headache. I was reaching for the grandpas. So it's like guys kind of jump to something straight away. Like, what's your go-to of like, oh, I've got a little bit of headache. Let me just take something instead of let me drink water. Did I sleep last night? Have I eaten? Have I had too much sugar? And now I'm like, now I've got a little bit of a headache because I've just had like a bit of a tough day. What's maybe do you think on the top of your list of clients jump to pharmaceuticals?
Well, it's anyone searches. We humans and we weak. We want convenience and immediate satisfaction. So it's easier to put your hopes and dreams on a pill than it is to look at yourself and go, well, I didn't do what I needed to, so that's why I'm suffering. Or what can I do better? Like, hey, and people do that for anything. Like, I'm in a bit of discomfort. Let me make it go away. I mean, there's discomfort involved in life. We don't need to suffer more than we need to, but I mean, you also have to take personal responsibility for certain things. And the more you rely on chemicals to make your life feel better, the more you're going to need those chemicals in your life. And I think that's the catch, you know. So if you open Pandora's box, in a sense, you got to be careful what you're getting on the other side of it.
Yeah, and Ben always said, like, no medication hasn't got a downside. So, I mean, like, as soon as you're like, oh, I'll just take this, you know, you're doing something else to your body. And just, I think, just immediately, as soon as something's wrong, just try to revert back to what have I done to get to this point, you know, and can't I just go look at the 5 pillars and fix it? But so I think a lot of guys jump to those things because it's easier and you want the quick fix. If you've got a headache, no one wants to have pain. So why not take, you know, something for it? Or one of my clients left yesterday with a bit of a sore knee. She hurt her knee in one of the running workouts. I didn't want to suggest it, but it was kind of like the one where I've said to her before, you know, try not to use any synthetics or whatever it is. And then as she was leaving, I was like, don't be scared to take ibuprofen for that because it might just like let you sleep. I could definitely see her like not sleeping last night because she wouldn't take like a synthetic, you know. So I was just, as she was leaving, I was like, you might want to do something for that. What do you want from us in terms of like level of what do we think is just an easy fix to take? Like if I've got a sick kid, I'm going to give them Nurofen. So I'm just going to be like, open the fridge, kind of just, you know, and not even think of any side effects. Should parents or guys be like, hey, hang on, let it go for 1 or 2 days? Like James started getting sick 2 days ago. He came with me to work on Tuesday. I was like, let me just keep him out of school, let him sleep late, whatever it is. So I gave him a day's like rest before giving him anything. You know, like where should guys start with, let's say, mild stuff?
I don't think there's anything untoward to say let's give it a day, unless they're very ill, obviously. I don't think any parent's going to look at their child and be like, let's see if this gets worse. But if they're not that unwell and they're kind of sniffing and complaining of a bit of a sore throat, kids deteriorate very quickly, but they also bounce back very quickly. So they might just be sort of on an upward swing and then you've given them something that you didn't need to give them. But I don't think that there's any need for children to suffer while they're sick. So giving them things that help with the symptoms, I think is a win, in my opinion. Yes, there are negatives to it, but I think the benefits of the child not suffering is, for me, it's more important than the transient side effects that they'll experience. Now, that's obviously not true of antibiotics. Antibiotics can have long-term side effects, so those should be prescribed and used with caution. I don't like when parents use an antibiotic that they've got from a mate or a vet, and they're like, oh, let me just, you have no idea. And they're just like, yeah, let me just quickly sort them out because I don't want them to get sick. It's like, that's not how antibiotics work at all, and you're doing a lot of damage. Antibiotics are very useful in the right context, but they still do damage. Even when they're doing the right things, the damage is there. There's no way around it. So I wouldn't jump to that.
And isn't it even more so like I hear people and like their kids have been like 20 courses of antibiotics by the time they're at like a year's age sort of thing. And it's like, what have you done to a kid's immune system now before he's even allowed him to have a microbiome and, you know, develop and that sort of thing.
And the same goes for adults. It's not to say kids are the only ones susceptible to the negative effects of antibiotics. It's throughout your lifetime. So use them when you need to, when it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think my medicine cupboard has a very few things in it, and they're used like on occasion. But parents sometimes, I think, like now when you say with antibiotics, like you kind of like, oh, I just got this from my friend doctor. You know, they really need to stay away from that kind of like, I want my child to be sick, better for this rugby game on Saturday, so I'm gonna quickly give him this antibiotic and hope that he's ready for rugby.
The most amazing
off
thing
the weekend, you know.
The most amazing thing I hear is, oh, I had leftover antibiotics, so I gave it. How did you have leftover? There's a course. You finished the course. The fact that you have leftover shows me that you don't have responsible tendencies towards antibiotics. You have to finish the course, otherwise you cause resistance to the bug. So that's the big like irritation I have with people in general, is the antibiotics thing. I think with other things we call them symptomometics, where you're trying to like just get rid of the symptoms. You can't really overdo it there. I mean, obviously you can take too much, but if you were to take something often for a headache or a cold or whatever, it wouldn't be doing long-term damage.
Yeah, so I mean, I normally just jump to that. So I mean, if the kids are starting to seem like they're getting hot, feverish, anything like that, it's just Nurofen or the generic of that. But I mean, I try to jump to those things to try just help with like, oh, they're uncomfortable, or James will wake up, bit of a headache, whatever it is. But other than that, we try just not go further through. I don't think my kids have been on antibiotics except for when he had that trip to ER at one time when he had his operation. He had his grommets and his things out. But I mean, and I would say my kids are healthier than the group of kids that they hang out with, and very often the other kids are like, oh, this one had this ear infection, so now they're on this antibiotic, or they had this.
Sure.
There's like a couple of things where they probably needed the antibiotic, but then there's quite a few where they're like, you should have just, Then I've got parents that don't let their kids go to school the week before school holidays, so they have a nice holiday. So now the kid's missing out a week of school just because they're scared that now the kids are going to get sick for the holidays.
Well, I hate school, so I'm pro that. It's pro
Yeah.
that. I was homeschooled, disclaimer. And then we've also got the sort of the other side of non-prescription pharmaceuticals, which is like your vitamins and minerals, if we can call them natural pharmaceuticals, which are by no means natural. Vitamin A, it's still synthetically made in a lab. You don't go to the vitamin A farm and pick some vitamin A. It's still all synthetic. And I think there's maybe a bit of a misunderstanding about how we should be supplementing, because I do think that micronutrients, or sort of the natural nutrients, should be supplemented, because food quality, as we've discussed in previous podcasts, has deteriorated so much. So we definitely need it. A ghost popping in here.
Door break.
So there's that, and I do think that it's good to be supplementing with that stuff, but you have to understand doses, and you have to understand what are toxic levels of these things in your body. For example, vitamin A, D, E, and K, the fat-soluble vitamins, they don't get passed through your urine. They go and sit in fat cells, and they accumulate over months and months and months and become toxic. So it's important to know what you're doing when you're doing non-prescription stuff. Although it isn't prescription, it still has its
Which
risks.
ones are those again? Vitamin?
A, D, E, K.
A, D, E, and K. E is?
Vitamin E.
Yeah. No. Where's that mainly found?
That's a good question. I know egg yolks have vitamin E,
Okay.
and I think some nuts.
How would you over supplement on vitamin E? Just checking your multivitamin or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I must check that one. I don't know that one. Yeah. I mean, I stopped using. When last did you use a multivitamin or prescribe that to one of your clients because they're generally not eating well?
Well, for most people, unless you are one of those terrible people who just eat completely crap, then no, I haven't really prescribed multivitamin.
Yeah, it's always food. It's always food. I mean, I don't even let guys, if they come to me, oh, so what's, what vitamins do you use? I normally get them to scrap everything, focus on diet, and then, omegas and a couple of other ones that we've recommended through, obviously, if you do blood work and stuff.
There's nothing wrong with a good multivitamin. It's how do you find a good multivitamin? That's the case, because we don't have a lot of FDA approval on any of these things. So you buy Ben's multivitamin, and I tell you it's got all the right things in it, and you take it, and it turns out it's all lead. That's by the book. I'm allowed to do that. So that's the difficulty. So I would say get a reputable brand. Solal and Solga in the South African context are really good, and Vital.
Metagenics is quite big now. Would you recommend some of the Metagenic stuff?
Yeah, that's
I
the
use
Clicks,
their probiotic.
the Clicks brand, eh?
I'll check
No,
Metagenics now.
I think it's
international.
International brand.
Yeah.
Normally kept on some of the back shelf because it's too expensive to have in the front.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, it's pretty pricey. Their probiotics quite good. I use one or two because it doesn't smell too bad. Some of the probiotics I try to give to Vicky or the kids, and
This is
before you open it, they're
God's
like, "Oh, not that
criteria."
again," So it's okay, cool. Let's get one of the more expensive ones that don't smell too bad. What other? Okay, so let's lean on to some of the more hardcore ones. Can we lean into
Prescription
the
medicine.
prescription stuff that's maybe being abused? Or
Yes,
not
I mean,
used without?
I've got lots of opinions on this. So let's start with you guys. Now I'd like to hear what your opinion is of the pharmaceutical world and prescription medicine as a whole.
I've got the sleep ones and then the depression and anxiety ones to talk about. But I mean, which ones do you want to lean on?
Well, for me, it's not one. It's the business model and the exact thing. It's not one thing. It's a business, and it's there to make money, and it's getting patients for life. So there's no turnaround. If it's not used in a way of cool, we're going to help you with this issue that you might have to come off it, then you're going to be using it for the rest of your life, or that leads to other complications with other medicine and whatever else, and you're going to be on a whole long list of things. It's I joked with two of my clients who are also doctors, and they were going away to some conference up country, and they were staying in a hotel, and I was like, so who sends you? It's like, no, pharmaceutical industry. So I'm like, Big Pharma having giving you a good weekend away, so you come back with a whole new bunch of sponsored meds, and like that's the business model. It's like, cool, you the guys who in contact with our patients, and this is how it sort of runs, and there's incentives and there's money to be made. At the end of the day, is it started with to be able to help patients? Yes, but are there different ways in which you can receive help and have different things? Yes. Does everyone need to be on meds for life? Ideally not. And what are we doing to get you off of that? Like those are the questions that you get asked. The pharmaceutical industry doesn't want you to get off at the end of the day because that's not helping them. That's not the business model. Um, and for me, it's a matter of like I said earlier, when it comes to anything, I think like I don't touch a lot of things. Like if I get a little headache, it's gonna be like, cool, is my neck maybe a little stiff? Have I drank enough water? Let me see if it passes before I just run and grab the next thing. And the minute you start using and you go into that sort of one thing, it gets easier to develop that habit of just grabbing something whenever you want. And then for every little thing in your life, then you're like, okay, well, where's the next pull? Because that's the mentality that sort of grows around that sort of thing. And you're never having that self gut check of like, cool, what am I doing to, not have to use this? Or where's my responsibility in this part? Um, and yeah, and the pharmaceutical loves that human side of us that just goes straight for that easiest fix on the next thing. And, their business model thrives on that. So for me, it's not like, yes, there's plenty of different avenues from sleep medication to antidepressants to, whether it's antibiotics to a number of different things that are not correct. But for me, it's the system that needs to be relooked or how we choose to use that system.
Yeah, for me, it's also once you, like you say, once you get that habit of using it too much, and then it becomes just an easy thing, then people get reliant on it, even if they don't need it. Almost like they don't want to let go of that medication or that synthetic that's really helped get them to where they are. Then they haven't done anything to get out of that situation except for use the medication. Now they're scared to get rid of it. Now maybe they do change their lifestyle, or fix this or fix that. They still end up using the medication because they've become so reliant on it, or they've enjoyed it to just make it easy. Had breakfast this morning with a friend, and he just used this example. We were talking about something, but the person with this massive like breast tumor, smelly thing that's been with him for a while, walking around with like this like abscess thing just sitting there, knows that it's there, knows that it could be treated, but now they're scared to get rid of it because they've lived with this thing for so long, even though it's kind of like making them smell, walk around. And it was quite an in-depth conversation we're having, but people get reliant on having something that they're scared to then have without. So once they've maybe, I don't know, sorted out their sleep with some medication, but then they are fixing a few other things, now they're so reliant that they go for a plane trip, they're just like, oh, I'll just use a sleeping tablet, whatever it is. But they actually don't need it. They should actually just try the next step. So even once they've fixed lifestyle stuff, they still get stuck on it. Yeah, so maybe we don't go into depths of all the topics. Sleep is the big one that I find if I chat to any of my clients, they've been prescribed something. They use
It's
something.
very rare to get off sleeping tablets. I know that sounds silly, but people generally go on lifelong, and maybe they don't use it every night, but for the rest of their lives, they'll struggle.
And then I still have a conversation with, I've got a few people that are close to me, and one of them uses it like religiously. No, it's just there for in case. It's just there for in case. And then I'm like, so how have you been sleeping the last couple? No, bad still. Well, you're always not going to be actually then sleeping.
Yeah.
Like,
We discussed this in the sleep podcast, but the one thing we see with sleeping tablets is it flattens waveforms in the brain. So you don't go through your normal cycles of sleep, which is what you need for hormone restoration, gut biome, sugar control, and immunity. You have to go through those brainwave cycles. And if you're not going through that, even if you're sleeping 20 hours a day, it won't help. You'll get sicker.
So I think from like our side, we obviously try to get people off of medication, but we obviously do then say, okay, cool, let's use medication to a degree. Is there any discussion in your realm of like doctor realm that this is a heavily like discussed topic, or is it kind of just pushed aside the whole time, where if you're practicing, you trying to still use our methods of not trying to give medication to a point, but do you still see like a big trend of like guys just leaning into the medical side because they make money off it? Is that money drive?
I don't necessarily look. Doctors make no money off medicine. That's one thing to realize. There's no financial incentive. The financial incentive comes in the amount of patients you can see a day when you write a tablet versus having a lifestyle consult is enormous. So if I charge for a consult and we do a lifestyle consult, it's going to take an hour. Like you have to go into detail to figure out what the problem is and then educate the person on how they can fix it. In that time, I could have seen 6 other patients and written a script and then billed 6 times that. So I effectively lose 5x on my business because I'm choosing not to prescribe medicine. So in that world, yes, I see a big drive for doctors to stick with prescription protocols because you have rent to pay. How are you going to cover the rent? You have to go through 20 patients a day. You can't do 20 lifestyle consults a day. You can maybe do 3. It's difficult. So in that aspect, yes, it's more financially beneficial for a doctor to be prescribing medicine. That being said, I do think that there's a generalized awakening worldwide, not so much within doctors, but within the general population to ask the question, why are we getting sicker? Why, with all of these medicines and all of this information and all of this access to information, why are we not the healthiest we've ever been? And I think that's where people are looking for someone who can, like you say, get them off their meds, focus more on the lifestyle modifications, things that we know do work. But it's very unsexy to tell someone, oh, you've got a sleeping issue. All right, let's do some low angle solar ray exposure for 20 minutes a day. They're going to be like, what? Where's my tablet? I've had people often, I mean, I don't want to say daily, but I would say almost daily, upset with me for not prescribing something by the time they leave. And that's also an issue for doctors because you want to retain the patient. You don't want that patient to go to another doctor. And you know the care you're giving is good, but now they want a tablet. So now you prescribe the tablet to retain the patient. You know what I mean? So it's a whole complicated smorgasbord of reasons why medicines have done so well. That being said, if you look at the medical industry as a whole, it's like Neil was saying, you need someone to peddle the product. You know, these drug companies have reps who go and see doctors and go and wine and dine, and it's insane. When I was a 4th-year medical student, I got taken out for dinner. It was like a proper like lamb shank with red wine, and it was like, whoa, what's going on here? And you kind of get caught up in this thing of like, oh, okay, this is cool, and yeah, I'll prescribe their product. I mean, they need a statin, I may as well use theirs. It's all good. But you very quickly realize that they're not doing that because they love you. They're not doing that because they love the patient. They're doing that because it's a recurrent sale. And I don't think that there's much argument to be made against the conclusion that the medical degree is written by pharmaceutical companies. There's very little in our degree that says, let's look at nutrition, let's look at exercise, let's look at sleep, let's look at hydration. Very little. I think in the 6 years of medicine, there's actually a statistic out there. It's something like 3 times nutrition is touched on. Not a lecture, just touched on. So it's like, okay, was health ever the objective here? Are doctors trying to make people sick? No. Doctors are good people working really hard under very difficult circumstances, genuinely trying to help people. There's way better ways to make money than being a doctor. But they genuinely want to help. But I do think there's been a lot of misinformation sold to the doctors in order to peddle the product.
So I think just a good combination would be that I'd say like guys like myself and Neil that drive like the health side, and I mean we probably have conversations every day that we don't even bill for, which kind of could take that work, not like from the doctors, but work with a doctor close by. Like how we work with you. So we work with you. I mean, we take all that lifestyle stuff basically on board ourselves. And that client that we do send your way is coming to you to get better. Like they've got something to fix with a medical kind of function. And that's kind of working, you know, like we taking that 45-minute consult, making money off of it, you doing your side, doing the doctor side, and that combination is working quite well.
I
So do you
genuinely,
think that doctors should maybe pair up with life
agreed.
coaches and things
I
like that?
genuinely don't think that doctors will lose business if they do that. I think if anything, it'll push it to the opposite.
Well, I mean, we've seen that with just you me, and Neil, us obviously getting clients through you because we need them to get better,
Yes.
to get back into the gym or back training or healthier or knees fixed. We've got a couple of knees coming through his way. I've got a couple of guys coming through your way as well that are genuinely getting fixed, you know, with medication that we can't fix with lifestyle and better choices and things like that. Yes, it's helping the process. But I mean, you haven't lost business, you've only gained. I've only gained business through it because I've got a recurring client now being able to train.
Yes.
So it's just a win-win situation.
I do think it's going to be difficult to partner up with doctors if any like sort of personal trainers are listening to this, because for someone to be willing to take a financial dive to be able to do the right thing is very rare. It's so hard because rent is expensive, insurance is expensive, life is expensive, and yeah, I mean you have to pay the bills. So I think it's tough, but I do think that there's been more and more an awakening around the world of patients, actual people saying like, we want answers, and this is not the answer. Why are we getting sicker? So there's massive buy-in, and I think if doctors are willing to start learning, which is very much the journey I've been on, is kind of like just be willing to keep an open mind to certain things. Maybe alternative therapies are the better way to go. If you're keeping an open mind, I think that you can kind of, there's a very unique opportunity now in history to be the tip of the spear. And we're seeing this with guys like Andrew Huberman, Peter Attia, who's that exercise physiologist that Huberman's always with. Anyway, his name escapes me, but guys who are making massive success because people want this. People have realized, okay, we want wellness and it's not medicine, so what is it?
From your side, do you think clients, because obviously we drive obviously the health side more than that, but do you think clients should just try to be more open with what the results that they want with kind of like us, so we can point them in the right direction to a doctor or a psychiatrist or a psychologist a little bit better? Find that like clients are a little bit shady that they haven't told you that they're using a medication or whatever it is. Like they've maybe seen a doctor, then they're coming to you because the doctor said you need to go and exercise. They come to you or me, and then we only find out months later that they're still using this or they're still struggling with that. Like clients should just be a little bit more open with their kind of coaches, life coaches /
Yeah, but you got. I mean, the question you got to ask is why aren't they open? You know, and that's like, because it's they have to be open with you. It means they have to look in the mirror a little bit deeper, and that's the hard thing. So people don't want to face that. Okay, maybe I haven't done what I've needed to do to sort of bypass this avenue, or get over this hurdle. Like, so the easiest thing is to not face it, not mention it. I can keep on doing what I'm doing to sort of get through that, even though I know this is probably not the best thing for me. But you do that long enough for a period of time, and then you feel like there's no going back, or like it's now even harder for me to make that, or you become more reliant on maybe whatever you've been using to cope with whatever you've taken to cope with. And what people don't understand is that you kind of just digging the hole deeper and deeper. So the sooner you start, the better. And prevention is better than cure. So, who knows where that road might take you, or what other issues you're going to have later down the line. So the sooner you do start is the better. And just, no one's perfect. We all make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I don't do everything I could do. There's certain things that I could always do better. Yes, I do a large number of things well, but, even for myself, I could go, well, I didn't need to do that. I could have done that. And that's why if you walk into a room and, everyone's eating pizza and you order salad, you're going to get a funny look, because people don't want to be reminded of their things that they maybe not doing the best they can. So, from our side, it's just making that person feel okay, that, they're not a failure and that they can come back from where they are now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared to say what they're struggling with because it's frowned upon, or they may be in a religion where it's frowned upon, or in a community where it's frowned upon, whatever it is. So they really hold it in, and it just makes the issue worse. And you find out like a year later, like, oh, but why didn't you just tell us? Like, no one cares.
I do also think that there's a responsibility on the healthcare practitioner, be it a trainer or a doctor or a physio, whatever it is, to get the truth out. And I think that happens through a trust relationship. I've had patients who have come to me and we've discussed very natural remedies to their issues, which I know will work, and they don't do it. And I kind of go back and I think, like, what is it? Like, what was it? If they genuinely trusted me and believed what I was saying would work, they would have done it. So sort of, where is it that I can be better? That's I think is something that's important to look at yourself. If you do have a patient who's maybe not being truthful with you, where can I be better to establish a good trust relationship here? I think that's a very important focus.
I think that's a good one, like to have that trust, because that's what I found now lately with a lot of my clients. As soon as they find that trust barrier, all of a sudden they start offloading a little bit more info. I'm like, okay, maybe we should slow down on the info now, because now it's like a bit of an overload, maybe, or like, where is this going to take us? But I do find that trust barrier, and it's also getting them to trust you because you are doing things that you say you're doing, or you not saying one thing then doing another thing.
Agreed.
So it's also kind of like backing.
But I mean, the trust also goes two ways, because there's a trust in you and them trusting the information you're going.
Yep.
but also then trust in the system that they now need to subscribe to. Like they've sort of maybe used medication to get them and it's sort of helped to this point. Now it's like, cool, but can I live or can I not live without this? Um, and the whole time, if you look at the world we live in, what is also the biggest education going around? So everywhere around you, there's pharmaceutical necessary advertising or something in your face or someone going, take this pill and you're going to feel better, or if you have this, whatever. So, it's placing always that responsibility out into something else. And what we kind of asking you to do is to take that responsibility for yourself. So it's like not only do you need them to trust you and that information, you need to get them to trust themselves again and believe that they can do it and willing to put the work in. And
Good.
for them, they're looking at like, well, I've tried this thing 3 times and I've failed. Like we see this often just with people trying to stick to an eating plan. Like, oh, I've been on 24 diets and nothing's worked. I'm still fatter than I was when I started 20 years ago. And that's not necessarily because the diet didn't work. It's because something inside of them has allowed them to always backpedal and sort of not take that sort of full responsibility. And that's what I'm saying. So you have to get through that person's insecurity sometimes in themselves to get over that hurdle and then to develop that trust and sort of break, maybe that cycle of thought pattern that's allowing them to come back to where they're always ending in failure.
Yeah, so this is actually a super hard topic to get people to. It's also because I would say guys are like a little bit lazy as well, so they'll need a quick fix. So because they're a bit lazy, they jump onto the quick fix,
Agreed.
where it's a little bit harder to now. Okay, cool. I'm sick, or my son's sick, or I'm struggling with this. Okay, it's going to take me maybe a day to actually research this, or maybe I'm going to need to go see a doctor for a second opinion, on this.
That's why it's so important to trust the person you're working with. To just say, do I need this? No. Okay, then I'm going to accept that. Because you see people who go for the quick fixes, but the quick fix becomes the long fix. For example, I can't sleep. Okay, here's a sleeping tablet. Quick fix. But now, over time, you still can't sleep and you've got a sleeping tablet addiction. So now you're actually further away from the goal than when you started. So, I think there's maybe a misunderstanding and a misrepresentation from doctors, maybe. I really don't like to put doctors down or sort of make them look like the baddies, because I genuinely think they're good people. But there is a responsibility that I think is being neglected in the realm of the quick fix. I'm actually doing more harm than good. If you do sleep deprivation therapy, it's amazing how quickly people sleep. Oh, I can't sleep. Okay. And
You will sleep.
it's not like, oh, okay, let me,
Yeah.
and then they sleep until 8 the next day. No, get up at 4:30. Get up at 4:30. Get up at 4:30. 3 weeks later, you're getting up at 4:30. I promise you, you're going to go to bed at 6 in the afternoon and you're going to sleep the whole night. Like, it's uncomfortable and it's horrendous and it's basically a form of torture, but it works. And 3 weeks later, your sleeping is healed, rather than I've done a month of sleeping tablets. I still can't sleep and I have an addiction now.
Yeah, so I mean, I see it now. Like we had school holidays. I get up at 6:20. Now with the school trips, whatever it is, I still set my alarm just in case. But 6:20, James is either coming through to the room or I'm waking up just before my alarm, and it's like habit now. And by 11 o'clock, I'm in bed, just whatever. I fall asleep with the lights on, like waiting for Vicky to come to bed or whatever. It's just because I've trained myself now to make sure that I'm getting through that, and I'm sleeping like just over 6 hours, which is not ideal, but it's still a good sleep habit that I've like created.
It's a full
for
night.
myself,
At least you're sleeping through.
Yeah, the kids come through and they wake you up or whatever it is, but it's up, yes, pee, cool, cheers, back to bed,
It's very interesting if you start having a look at medicines, going back to the pharmaceutical industry that we kind of try and talk about here. If you look at medicines as a whole, the side effect profiles of medicines are very interesting. If you take a PPI, which is what you take for gastric reflux, proton pump inhibitor, to stop your gastric reflux, that's like the gold standard therapy. Guess what the number one side effect of that is? Gastric reflux. So then you need more. And thus you have a recurrent sale, and you think, okay, or even sleeping tablets, one of the side effects is somnolence, which is feeling sleepy, and the other one's insomnia. It's like, was this ever designed to help? Now, I'm not saying that the doctors are bad. I'm saying the drug companies are bad. There's been a very intelligent design behind these things to keep a recurrent customer.
I've got a client that is getting married soon, bad skin, and now they're on to like almost just like a skin like Reactan or something like that, one of those things, in class the other night, and they start to have like chest pains. This person's been healthy the whole time. Yes, a little bit of bad skin, whatever it is. Started using creatine as well, and then they said to me, "But should I stop the creatine?" So I'm like, "You should probably stop the skin medication." And the skin's not better. So it's like it's almost like they're using this product that's been prescribed, I think, by a GP, not even by a skin doctor. I said, "Go see this guy. He's a skin doctor. Let him have a look at your lifestyle. Then tell him you're taking creatine. Like go into the depths of that. Like you're seeing the wrong person for this. So it's almost like they're using something just to quickly fix something for their wedding, but it's actually making the whole issue even worse. Now they're not training. Now they're not losing weight. Now they're not. There's all these other things. I'm like, I just want to say, stop everything.
Yeah.
Drop everything.
Yes.
Do nothing. Drink more water. Eat better. Sleep better.
Do 12,000 steps a day. Get your protein goals and watch
your
what
skin
happens.
Get better,
Yeah.
Or he could have done carnivore for months and probably would have cleared up his skin at the same time.
It could be the sugars
and lost the
all
weight.
these other things.
When I did was it 3 weeks ago, did my 3-day fast, my skin's never been better. And then I realized, oh, okay, well, it's the processed foods I was eating.
It's these things, they're like all these toxins in your body that your body's just trying to get rid of. And the organ, your skin, is trying to just get rid of shit,
It's true. There are people who have hormonally driven acne. I'm not saying that doesn't exist, and there are treatments for that. But I don't, let's not get too far into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But in general, I don't think that the pharmaceutical industry exists because they love you. And I think everyone can agree on that. Do we need medicine? Yes. Am I thankful for medicine? So thankful. Like, if I'm dying of a heart attack, don't give me sunlight exposure. Give me the medicine. You know what I mean? Like, it's awesome. And it saves lives every day. Thousands, millions of lives are saved every day because of medicine. But prescribed in the right context and with an exit strategy to get off once the actual issue has resolved.
Yeah, but I mean, this is like the beauty of capitalism is that we have these medicines now available to be used because that's what drove it there in the first place. Like people were there to make money. But on the flip side, in terms of trying to make money, they've also ended up screwing us over because there's certain things which have led to like, okay, cool. Well, this medication was work, but now it's out of patent, so we don't make as much money to it. So we're not going to prescribe this anymore. Let's develop the next thing, which we can now drive funds and whatever the case is. So, and you see that in everything. Like certain things will get squashed or driven out because they're just not profitable to be made, even though they're still useful. And there's whole that sort of thing. So it's like you said, it's not necessarily the doctors are bad, but the loudest screaming voice, because where the most money is made and controlled the medical system comes from the pharmaceutical industry. So
Agreed.
The narrative is dictated by them, and that's where your education and you go like, your patients have this problem. Here's a solution to that problem. I feel like I'm a good doctor because I'm offering this solution to the problem, but it's not covering the bigger picture of what we as a human need to survive and thrive.
Yeah, it's like that one doctor friend he went to Italy for some convention where they are now talking about what they're going to do in the next global kind of pandemic, whatever it is. So now they're actually talking about now a future pandemic where they're not talking about the current issue with what's going on. Like there's no let's fix these things, let's prepare, spend a bunch of money on what next vaccine could work, or let's put vaccines in place for when it happens.
I know who you're talking about. I also chatted to him just before he left, and he says to me he's going to a pandemic preparedness conference, and I was like, oh, are they already planning the second one? He didn't like it. Anyway, but
because that's very.
It is. I mean, if you just take a little step back, it's like, okay, wow. This is interesting.
So I mean, this takes us back to the previous podcast where we spoke about let's both take on the responsibility. So me as the patient,
me as
the doctor,
and the patient themselves,
and the patient, us, just educating ourselves a little bit better and actually taking some time to give yourself, what do I need if I start doing A, B, C? Like maybe yes, I do have. Like James is a little bit more just like if he gets a funny chest, a funny thing. So I've got some prepared meds there because I don't want to rush him to the ER that I can. Okay, the other day, like Monday night when he was a little bit sick, okay, cool. Let's give the stuff that the syrup that you gave me, whatever it is, like started dosing that again. Took that out because it's run out. So I need to get some more just in case, So there's things that I've got measures in place. But I've taken a long time to get him to this point of these are the steps that we're taking to prevent. And how can I make sure that he's not getting in a bunch of other things that could be causing a tighter chest or whatever?
Like I said, I don't think we need to skimp on the kids. I don't necessarily think there's too much to worry about other than antibiotics when we're looking after kids. If you want to rather be sure, go for it. But as an adult, like Neil says, if you've got a bit of a headache, find the cause. Maybe you didn't drink enough. Drink some water, wait 2 hours. I'm not talking about migraines here, people who suffer from like actual disease. I'm talking about your average headache. I've got a headache now because I didn't sleep enough last night. Fine. Haven't had enough water today. Fine. I'm not going to take anything for that. And I think there's adults should push themselves to be avoiding non-essential pharmaceuticals.
Yeah. So I think just prepare yourself a little bit better.
Yeah, but it's like we've
Ask the questions.
also made it's that personal responsibility, and if you're doing the 5 pillars properly, you're probably not going to need that medication as much.
True.
So again, it comes back to just the basics.
Cool.
Cool.
Lekker,
Wrap it up there.
guys. Sweet.